Hey everybody, today I'm going to be doing a tutorial in Final Cut Pro 10, but this actually can be used for any nonlinear editor that has more than one video track and can have some common filters and some color correction adjustments. And it's basically what this tutorial is going to be doing is dealing with green screen footage that you take, and you can basically cause that green screen footage to cast a shadow on the background that you place it in. So let's go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to open up Final Cut Pro 10, which I already have open. And this, I'm just going to give you an overview of what this looks like, and then after this overview, I'm going to give you a detailed tutorial on how I do this in Final Cut Pro 10. Again, this can be done in any nonlinear editor that's got more than one video track. But here's my original footage. This is my daughter. She's in her kitty cat princess costume. We have this kind of ongoing thing where it's kind of a daddy-daughter thing where she comes up with stories and then I turn them in, well, we make videos out of them. And in this particular episode of her series, it's the characters go into each other's dream worlds, and so this obviously was going to require some green screen footage. And as you can see, that the camera is tilted 90 degrees, and this way I'm able to get her whole body in there from top to bottom. And as you can see, there's some stuff here I'm going to want to get rid of. So I'm going to eventually rotate this 90 degrees and crop the bottom, the top, and the sides to get rid of the stuff that I don't need. Like right here, we've got some wrinkles here and some shadows here, but it'll actually work pretty good. So okay, so now I have rotated, cropped, and resized it in position where I think it's going to need to be. And the next thing we're going to be needing to do is apply the keyer effect, which is right here. And now Final Cut Pro 10 has one of the best chroma key filters or plugins that you can ask for. It's better than Final Cut 7. It's better than Motion 4. It's really good. It's almost instantaneous. I mean, you highlight the clip you want to do it to, then you highlight the keyer effect, and it's like that. And it does such a good job. You only have to go in and tweak it just a little bit, and then it's. I mean, whereas using the Primat RT filter, which is what Final Cut Pro 7 and Motion 4 would use, it takes a lot more tweaking to get things just right. Whereas this does a really good job right from the get-go. And so, but if that's another thing, is you'll have to have some sort of a plugin that does chroma key in your nonlinear editor. The next thing I want to do, since I'm going to be working with trying to add a shadow to this, I needed to have a background. So I added a white background. This'll aid me in creating the shadow. And as you can tell, this looks really out of place, because it just looks like I've got. Obviously, there's no such thing as a completely white world or white situation, but even if she were in a completely well-lit white studio, this still looks like it's just an image superimposed over a white background. But what makes it more sellable is if she were casting a shadow. And so this right here is the creation of the shadow. Now this is what the finished shadow looks like. These are the steps that I use to do this. Now, I've already figured out that I can take away this applying the black and white effect, because if you go into the color correction and you, in addition to reducing the exposure to 0, you reduce the saturation to 0, and this does the same thing. So you can cut that out, and then also saves you from having to have an additional effect applied. But those are the steps that you can use in your own nonlinear editor, and it's a pretty easy. Well, the concept is pretty easy. Sometimes it all depends on the performance of your computer, how well that works as far as how quickly this will be able to be rendered. So anyway, but of course I didn't want to just have it on a. So here they are together. Here's the image of my daughter, and then her shadow. And it may or may not need more tweaking, but it's pretty good. You know, it looks, the shadow is acting exactly how it's supposed to. And that's how that is. Now, of course, we want to have it on a different background, so I added this desert background. This is the Arches National Park in Utah. And now I wish that this were a static video shot, because then it would look a lot better. Because then you could see the trees or bushes blowing and, you know, swaying in the breeze or whatever. But it's a still photo. But anyway, it still looks 100% better than just if I had just had her superimposed on there, because, you know, her lighting's not exactly the best. But I also decided to try doing the same effect, but just instead of adding the shadow, just basically making a reflection, and that looks pretty good. So that's another way you can kind of sell it. So this is the exact same process. So I didn't have to do so many steps. But there that is. Okay, now I'm going to get into the actual tutorial. Okay, now let's get to the actual tutorial in Final Cut Pro 10. Obviously, this is going to be a little different, maybe a few steps differently than what you do in your non-linear editor, but the end result will be the same. I mean, things might be in different places. Things will be, you know, not quite the same, but anyway, these are the 3 clips I'm working with. Right now, I've got this super duper low resolution background. It's a white background, and that's the one that I use to help whenever I'm doing the shadow. I have this background right here, which is of the Arches National Park in Utah. And then I have my daughter's green screen footage right here. And so let's go ahead and get this started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put down the this background. This is eventually the background that I'm going to be using, and everything else is going to be built on top of it, because you know, this is going to be the base layer. So I go ahead and type E, and that will create a new clip. So so here it is right here, and I know that this is about 15 seconds long, so I'm going to take and go out to 15 seconds. So I'll go 15, wait, something like that. And I'm going to do the same thing with the same thing with the white background. I'm going to do the same thing as if I'm going to hit Q, which is attached to the storyline right there. It's attached to the top. I'll make this the same length. And now I'm going to take the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the footage here and do the same thing. Go down here at the beginning, hit Q, and it also attaches it to it. So now we've got these three right here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you can, and the cool thing about Final Cut Pro 10 is you can select the clip, you can hit the V key, and that disables the video of that. And then if you want to re-enable it, you just click the V key again, and that will re-enable the video clip. So right now we're going to do the king. Actually, we're going to rotate her, and we're going to do the stuff we need to do to this clip right now. So as I said before, obviously we're not going to want to have the stuff here, so we need to rotate her. The first thing we got to do is click on the transform, and here's this rotate tool. If you hold down the shift key, it constrains it to 45-degree increments. So there's 145-degree, 145. So now she's 90 degrees. Hold down the shift key again while you try to resize it, and that keeps it from it constrains its aspect ratio, so it doesn't change. It doesn't skew it or whatever. It keeps everything the way it's supposed to. Now I'm going to want to get rid of basically everything. I'm going to crop, and first thing I want to do is I want to check out where she's pointing here. So now what we want to do is we want to click on the inspector and go to video, of course. And for crop, since we rotated it, left is going to be top, and we want to come down here because that's as far as she went, and right is going to be the bottom. And I want to take away everything up to there, and for her, we'll go down to where she points, and then we'll go over here somewhere where she points to the other direction, and then we'll trim that to there. So, all right, so that's pretty good. I think I might actually bring the top of it just a little bit above. Okay. So then we're going to take her and we're going to put her somewhere in this corner. And I'm going to click on the Shift key and hold her down to bring her down a little bit so she's a little smaller. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm actually going to enable this video clip to see where she might be able to be. I think I'm going to, oh, not that one. Actually, this clip I am going to make bigger, so I'm going to increase the size by holding down the Shift button while I do that, and then bring it there. So now that's pretty much where I want it to be. I need to go up here, select this. I'm going to probably put her right there. Okay. So now I'm going to go back here and disable the background, and I'm going to go to here. If I click on this, you can. This is 100% view, and so I can see what this looks like. Now I'm going to apply the keyer effect. So I've got this highlighted. I go to Effects, click on Keying, and click on Keyer. And immediately, I just put it over there, and I haven't even clicked on anything, and it already does a really good job. It's right there, but I need to drag it onto it. So, or you can either drag it or you can double click, and again, there she is. She's already keyed out really well, but it still needs some tweaking. So you click on the drop down triangle so you can see a little more of what's going on here. Click on the matte. And you can see right here, she's got some spots that will bleed through. And they have this really cool thing called fill the holes right here. And you can just click it to where there are no, just past the point where everything nothing comes through in the middle of her. Then you see the finished view. And the spill level is pretty good. Her color is pretty good, so we're just going to keep it the way it is. Okay, we're going to go back to Fit. And there she is. Okay, so now the next thing, that's pretty much all we're going to do with that clip, except for now we're going to copy and paste it. So let's go out a little bit, and we're going to copy this, and then we're going to paste it at the end of the storyline here. Now this right here is going to eventually be our finished. This is her. That's going to be her. What we're going to be dealing with up here, on this end of it, is this is the shadow. This is going to be the shadow, because again, this is going to be beneath. As far as layers go, this is going to be beneath her. She's the top. The background is the bottom. So now let's go ahead and deal with this. We're going to enable the white background so we can see this more fully. And we're going to do some color correction right now to make it so that she's completely black and there's no color to it. So we're going to go to Color and hit Correction. This will be correction number 1. And for exposure, we're going to drag it all the way down. That completely gets her black. And saturation, we're going to do the same thing. And the reason why we do both is because if you don't do this, when you apply the Gaussian blur, some of her pink dress will come through. It'll actually show a little bit of pink and red in there. So you want to take the saturation all the way down. Okay, so now that's done. And now there's 2 ways you can do this next step. You can either in Final Cut Pro there's an effect called the flipped key, the flipped effect, and you just click on it, and it basically creates it's flipped both horizontally and vertically, so it flips it and turns it upside down, and that's exactly what we want, because this is how the shadow would react. Now, right now it looks just like a cutout version of her that's flipped and upside down. So, but we're going to make this into a shadow by doing this. You're going to click off the transform. You're going to click on the skew, and this is what we do here. Is we're going to take these. Here, I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can see what we're doing here. I'll make it a little bit less, 75%. We're going to take and you drag these corners out a little bit to be more of a three-dimensional thing. Now it looks like it's more of a shadow. And if we shrink it a little bit this way, we can kind of adjust the angle of the light that's behind her, that's casting the shadow. So if the light was low, if the sunshine was low behind her, then she would be casting a much longer shadow. If it's high up in the sky, kind of say around noontime, it's going to be something more along like this. Unless you live on the equator, the sun is never exactly above you. So it's a little bit of a difference there. So you're gonna always want to have it somewhat of a cast shadow. Now, obviously, this still doesn't look exactly like a shadow. Because the lines are so harsh. Now, the way we do that, get rid of that, is we apply the Gaussian blur. But before we do that, the reason why the Gaussian blur effect is the last step on that list of things that we do here is because as soon as you apply that, it makes, at least in Final Cut Pro, it takes a lot of the resources out of the CPU and the GPU and wants to redraw. And so you do something to it, and it takes 5 seconds for it to show that it did it. So I always wait to the very last until I'm completely happy to where the shadow is and where it's placed. So now, because this is large, I'm going to actually reduce the scale to, say, I don't know, to that. And I'll put it down here somewhere where I'm not exactly sure where she's at yet, but this is pretty close to where it's going to be. So the next thing, now that we've done those steps, we're going to take this clip and we're going to drag it on top of all the other clips, so now I can see what oops, okay, fit. I should have done that in the first place. I had it zoomed, but anyway, this is, you want to drag it basically underneath her feet. And I probably will scale this up a little bit, obviously. Yeah, I'm going to make the scale a little bit bigger. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit, maybe a little too much. But actually, I'm pretty happy with that. I might even go so far as to drag these in a little bit. Anyway, so there that is. Now I'm pretty happy with this. If I play back, it's just gonna be a little bit jerky in motion, but you can tell that it's kind of going along with her. It's obviously it's going to be moving exactly the way she does because it's an exact copy of her. It's just been altered. Now, in order to make this actually look like a shadow, we're going to add a blur, and so we want to click on, make sure that this is the one that's highlighted, not her, which is this middle one here, and click on blur, and click on Gaussian blur, and drag it over to it. Okay, now we've taken some of the harsh lines out of it. Now it looks okay now, but I'm going to give it a little bit more oomph to it, and we're going to, the thing we want to do now is to, so you want to have, so after making sure this is the one that's highlighted, we're going to reduce the opacity to, say, I don't know, 75%, 80%. It's pretty good. It all depends on how harsh your light is that's on the background. So the way to test this out is now I'm going to disable the white background, and I'm going to enable the desert background, and then we can see that there it is. Now I'm going to let this render, and then I'll play it back so you can see what it looks like. Alright, so I've let this render, and it's only going to take about 3 minutes for that to do that. And so now we can see it as I'm playing. Her shadow is reacting as naturally as a real shadow would be, because it's an exact duplicate of her green screen footage. So obviously it's going to react the same way. Now there are other ways you can sell this. You can add some lighting effects or change some of the color effects on her so that she looks a little bit more like she belongs there. I would probably bring down her brightness level a little bit. in motion you can actually add some lighting effects on the clip. So that's probably what I would do if I were doing this in motion. But that being said, I wanted to show how to do this in nonlinear editor and not in motion, not in After Effects. And so I know that in After Effects there's actually a plugin called Keylight that will do this pretty much the same way. But I wanted to show that anybody can do this so long as they have a basic nonlinear editor that has more than one video track. So there it is. Right after the tutorial, there is a sample clip taken from my daughter's most recent video showing this same effect. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments. Tell me what you think. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. And I'll be getting on to more tutorials as my time allows. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
See? This is what my colorful dream world looks like. Wow, Tiger, this is amazing. Here's where I play. Here's where I eat. Tiger, this is really nice. You can probably show me your game world when we get back. Okay.